We're on air. But selfish.
Alright, welcome back. So, Chief Gilly, you and Mr. Graham, want to start off with your background check information?
This is something that came up, I guess last month or was it the month before? Y'all mentioned doing a background check on potential board members and things like that. Just basically looking for things that may be of concern. So Wes and I drafted up. Did you give him a copy of the? There should be a copy of a little draft policy, I guess, or a memo about it. And we just basically, as a draft, wanted y'all to look at it, see if this is what you meant. If this policy or this procedure is acceptable to y'all and fulfills what concerns you had, and kind of go from there, really. So y'all are driving this boat.
Would you like for us to respond to these questions at the bottom?
Yes, please, for some direction.
Okay.
And if you're comfortable with what we proposed of the chief doing the background check, notifying myself and the mayor, I won't know what the results are, just the mayor will, and we will pursue from there if the candidate is desirable. You will make the decision in a executive session on the confirmation. So if that's the direction you're wanting to go.
If they're flagged, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If they're not flagged, there's.
Yeah.
How far back do you usually go with that background check?
As long as usually to when you're an adult, that's usually up back to 18 years old. That's just how they run. I mean, you know, there's not necessarily a time limit that we put in there. That's just how far back they go.
Okay, I just wanted, that's a standard procedure, so if you get one running, you're gonna automatically kind of do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, you know, to Mr. Rich's concern, obviously this isn't meant to be an everybody knows type situation, you know, and really the only times you'd see anything is whether or not it flags based on, I think it's the third bullet point down, talks about crimes that meet a certain criteria, you know, because I like Mr. Rich has said, I mean, it doesn't matter, it shouldn't necessarily matter, you got a DUI 20 years ago. I mean, you know, that's not what the concern is. That's what we took from y'all's discussion.
So this pretty much, y'all must have stole this from the church. So this pretty much takes, this is kind of like the layout for what happens now in a church. If you're keeping a nursery or keeping kids, or
Something like that, or a lot of times, like if you volunteer to coach at James Island or anything like that.
Anytime you're doing something with
it's
children,
pretty much the same type stuff.
Okay. And normally it's just like a one-time, unless, I mean, you check somebody out once, it's like, you don't need to go back every
Well,
year.
I think, you know, Councilman Folly mentioned, I mean, the unfortunate part is once you become a public official, something you make a mistake, it's everybody knows about it. So this is really just prior to any kind of appointment. There's really no need to continually run something like that. Plus, we don't do that for employees either, so it's not what we're asking to do. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, essentially, it's part of a process for eligibility to be able to run. So if we actually did this for confidentiality purposes, is there a way that we never really know prior to all this as to what transpired, in the sense of you deem someone's eligible for whatever reason, then it comes forward? That's my question as far as protecting.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we're suggesting, is basically if you guys are okay with the third bullet point, talking about crimes of moral turpitude, violent crimes, or crimes against children, if that's the criteria you want me to flag, then I'll do that, and then I'll let these guys know as the mayor and obviously the liaison, this is the concern, and then y'all get to make the decision as to whether or not that's something you want to sign off on. I don't. It's y'all's appointee. It's not mine.
Right.
So this is just an information thing.
Process.
Y'all, this is what the situation is. If you're okay with it, then so be it.
And again, I don't need to know the details, but is it like, are we solving a problem in the sense of the history of this? Because I really don't have it. So is this one, and I don't know who the question should, does this solve some problems that we?
So the discussion, the reason it came up is making sure, just like you would for hiring me or
Right.
anybody,
Right,
is if you're putting somebody in a position of trust or power, especially when they're dealing with the public, and so, you put somebody in charge of parks and recreation,
yep,
you don't want somebody that's gonna constantly be interacting with families, being somebody who's a child sex crimes offender,
okay,
because
Yeah.
unfortunately, right, you don't really know anybody. Does that make sense?
oh, it totally makes,
Nobody's gonna go run around with their t-shirt on that says, hey, I'm a
yeah,
sex offender.
yeah.
So it just gives y'all a little bit of background to make good decisions and safe decisions for the community. I mean, that's what y'all are charged with.
And it minimizes risk, and they,
100%.
okay,
And that's why we talked about, elected officials are one thing. Y'all are elected, it doesn't really matter, right? But these are people who you guys are choosing to appoint, whatever.
got it.
If someone's gonna vote for you, they should do their own bidding, right? So this is something that isn't voted on by the public. This is y'all appointing people, so.
I understand, thank you.
I believe this is well written. I agree with you in terms of the frequency, that it would be done upon recommendation or appointment. Crimes of moral turpitude, would those include white collar crimes?
Yes, that's exactly what that covers.
Okay, so bribery, kickbacks.
Exactly. Do you have anything?
I think it looks good myself. Thanks.
I agree, if you're looking for a head count.
So the next steps will, update the ordinance change and bring it back. All set for that.
Yep.
We will bring it back in May.
All right, thank you. So moving right along. We're 5 minutes over, we don't have anything else, so, do I have a motion to go to executive session to talk about contracts with James Island Public Services?
So
Okay. We will return.